Welcome back to the Messianic Hour. I'm your host, Rabbi Scott. The show is dedicated to reaching the lost and educating the found. And we have with us in studio a special guest you can watch on YouTube and our website. We have Dan and Melissa David, and they are Messianic musicians. They have an interesting testimony. We're going to talk to them. I got to meet them a few weeks ago as we were doing a TV show in Augusta, and they've been traveling the States. They're from our natives up north in Canada. We won't hold that against them. But yet Dan is originally from Israel, and so we're going to talk about a great testimony he has. We were going to talk about it then. They never gave it to me, so I figured we'll have it here on the show. And we're so glad we have you all with us. Why don't you say hello to our audience?
Hi, good to be here.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us.
And you can see also on our website there, we have a link to their webpage. If you're watching on YouTube and on our archives, you can also see that as well. But you have an interesting testimony. You both were into music. Dan, you're an Israeli who accepted Yeshua as Messiah. And Melissa, you're a righteous Gentile, so we brought that the mix of both. But tell us a little bit about your experience in Israel. You're a very accomplished violinist, and so let's hear a little bit about you.
Yeah, I grew up in Israel, in Tel Aviv, and I picked up the violin at the age of 7. And by the time I was 10 and a half, the family moved to Montreal, Canada, primarily because a lot of the friends were already immigrating to Canada, even though the prophetic call is to return back to the homeland. But they really wanted us for me to pursue music in Canada, and so by the time I was 18, I was already a professional violinist because I had a scholarship program earlier on with the McGill Faculty of Music in Montreal, and I was offered pretty much a career to move into the classical direction.
Wow.
Yeah, but in my heart I knew that I didn't find the answers I was looking for in life, and suddenly the Adonai himself started using me to write new songs.
And so what was the change, though, that made you realize that Yeshua was Messiah?
Well, I can get to it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I really wanted to have a relationship with Adonai, God the Father, and I knew that I didn't have it, and my family was very, we grew up conservative, and we only attended synagogue because of high holidays,
So you were a conservative Jew, but only on the holidays. I know a lot of Reformed Jews like that.
yeah, it's not much different, And so I started writing new songs, and a little bit went a different direction than my classical path that my parents wanted me to be on. And by the time I was 20, I was offered a record deal with BMG, with a major label, pretty much. I'm not going to mention the name, as there were a couple labels actually offering me the deals, but it was more for secular music, and it was to entertain the world and to write music for the world. I mean, they were going to pair me up even with major people like Celine Dion for some collaborations, and it was just that kind of opportunity. But I didn't feel right about signing the deal. Something in my heart was just telling me it's not it, and so I just embarked on becoming a session player for really popular artists, and we played for like audiences in the tens of thousands every night, like 10,000 plus. And there I kept searching, the revelation that Yeshua is the Messiah came to my heart. And I also crossed paths with Pedro Ustache, who is one of the best flutists in the world. He plays for Phil Collins, but right now he's a minister full time, and he played on Passion of the Christ, the movie, which is a Christian movie, but anyhow, he was really a big light. He shines that. He's been shining the light of Yeshua every time we work together, and my conviction in Yeshua the Messiah kept growing. But it really happened in the year 2000 when I was 22.
Right.
And I know some people think I'm 23 now, but it was a long time ago. So when I was 22 in the year 2000, and I was driving late one night, and I knew that the Lord Yeshua is the Messiah, but I didn't accept him yet. And suddenly he knocked on my door and just said to me that I'm the way, the truth, and the life. And as I kept driving that night, the Lord just took the veil of the invisible out and made a quick appearance to me, late to that night. And that's when I really got it, that, we have to follow him as disciples and, follow him as our Messiah.
So you have a personal experience with Messiah, and so you get home that night and knock on your parents' door and say, I have some interesting news. How did they take you accepting Yeshua as your Messiah, as a, quote, conservative Jewish family that only goes on the holidays?
Luckily for me, when I was 22, I moved out. So God had prepared the way, because it wasn't easy to move out from a beautiful luxury home and to start everything over. And they pretty much heard about it, and they've been opposing me for about 8 years.
Wow.
And it was really difficult. But by praying for them, and over time also, I discovered that the Jewish people are supposed to believe in Yeshua. I didn't know that at first. In 2008, actually, I was introduced by the MJA to the Messianic communities. I got to work with Marty Getz and Ted Pierce. And
great guys.
Yeah, and I got to be interviewed by CBN as well on my testimony. And my parents eventually started watching, and they started hearing about the fruit of what God was doing. And in 2009, they became believers as well.
Oh,
so
praise God.
By hearing my testimony and hearing that only through Yeshua we can know Adonai personally.
Right. So God used you, brought your parents, even though it was a rough start, which is, we've heard everything from people being, funerals done to disowning.
Yeah.
Yours is a different story. Your parents actually, through that, later on accepted the Lord. Then how did you meet this lovely lady right next to you, Melissa?
Everything happened because I trusted the Lord's call. I used to own a small music school for about 8 years, and the school was doing really well, but in 2008, the Lord spoke to me clearly to start moving on to ministry full time, and I obeyed the Lord's words here, and it was a big time of preparation too. But by early 2010, when I was in full time ministry, there was a big article about the ministry God has given me on the Messianic Times, and it was also a time when I was praying for a wife, and Melissa got the article. So did many people, but something really stirred her heart to contact me and to try to collaborate.
Now, how did you get into? You're born a Gentile.
Yes.
How did you all of a sudden decide I want to be Messianic?
Well, it wasn't just an overnight decision, Scott. Actually, God had been working in my heart from the time I was a child. Even as a 10-year-old, I remember that Israel's Hope, Paul Wilbur's former trio, was my favorite music.
Don't tell Paul he's not that old, but go ahead.
So there was something, God had planted a seed from the time I was a young child, and then in my early 20s I started to discover, through many supernatural leadings of the Holy Spirit, my Jewish roots. And there was something that when I came to my first Messianic congregation, I felt like I was coming home. And through a supernatural encounter with the Lord one evening when I was reading the book of Ruth, and the Lord had me lay under a talit, just like Ruth did, under Boaz's garment. And he spoke to me that this was the calling that he had on my life, to give my entire self, my entire being for his people. And I knew that eventually that would involve marrying a Messianic Jewish man. As my mom had received from the Lord 9.5 years ago, the Lord spoke to her and told her that indeed was my destiny. So I basically had to be obedient to his call and take those step-by-step actions and be faithful. And then in 2010, I read an article about Dan, and not for any romantic reason did I contact him. I was in the middle of recording a new Hebraic themed album entitled Sojourn, and I was looking for a Messianic string player, and I didn't know anybody in Alberta, in Western Canada. Read about Dan, contacted him, and many supernatural details later, it ended up that God had more for us than just a business collaboration. So,
well, that's exciting. Now, so for our listening audience, those who are listening, not watching right now, how can they get your CDs? Because you have 3 CDs, one each separate, and then the one together. So this way they can hear it. So why don't you let them know, give out your website?
Yeah, our website is www.dandavidmusic.com, just the way it sounds. And you can find all of our albums online. There's actually 5 in total, but the 2 of our most recent ones are our bestsellers. And they can be ordered. They're also available on iTunes and Amazon. Or you can drop us an email. Our email address is right on the website.
Go ahead and give it to them.
It's dandavidw@hotmail.com.
So that way they can get in touch with y'all, learn more about y'all. Unfortunately, the time's almost up, so we're going to have to go. But I really want them to get to know you, listen to your music. And if they're a congregation, church, or synagogue, they can have you come, and you do concerts, you do tours as well, so they can get that information at the website. So I want to encourage our listening audience, go there. Go to rabbiscott.com. We have more information. We have a link to their website as well. Until next week, this is Rabbi Scott saying shalom and pray for the peace of Jerusalem.